You've been here in London all day, meeting with investors, talking to them about their various concerns. One of those has been the recent proposal by the Public Protector that the Constitution actually changed to make the central bank focus more on growth, or specifically on the socio-economic well-being of the citizens, rather than inflation and protecting the value of the currency. Do you agree with this proposal?
Look, the report was released while I was traveling abroad. I still have to study. I'm still studying the report to understand the full extent of the remedial action being proposed, the context in which it arises, and therefore what the intended purpose of the constitutional amendment. There seems to be a conundrum in this regard. In the first instance, the context in which it arises is not quite clear to me. Secondly, the purpose, therefore, of the amendment is also not quite clear, given the issues that were being investigated. And thirdly, the procedure of effecting this remedial action leaves some gaps, because the Reserve Bank is the mandate of the National Treasury. And yet the proposal is being made to the Portfolio Committee of Justice and not to the Minister of Finance, right, which means that we need to resolve those issues. Now, having said that, I need to then understand all of this and make a determination on what's the best way forward, because the Constitutional Court in South Africa has said that the remedial action proposed by the Public Protector is binding unless reviewed by a court of law, which means that if we must review this, we need to go to court and seek a review.
Yeah, and that brings me on to my next question, which, you know, regardless of the context, the central bank has called this unlawful. To your understanding, would it be unlawful to change the constitution in this way?
To change the constitution would be unlawful, but the manner in which the recommendation... to change the constitution would not be unlawful, but the manner in which the recommendation is being made would be unlawful, given that these are two independent institutions.
Right.
The South Africa prides itself in its strong institutions, many of which are independent, including the Public Protector, the South African Reserve Bank. And I think in that way, we take comfort in the fact that our courts are known to be independent themselves and to take rational decisions, and therefore they will provide us with a proper way forward, having received the request for a review by the South African Reserve Bank, and we will then have the courts arbitrating this issue and making the necessary determination.
But will you, as Finance Minister, support the Reserve Bank in opposing the Public Protector suggestion?
I think that must follow me studying the report. At the present moment, I am interacting with the report to understand it in its full extent, and once I've done that, I will make a determination whether I'm joining the South African Reserve Bank. But what I want to emphasize is that we respect the Public Protector's independence and the right of the Public Protector to make whatever recommendations, but I also support fully the independence of the South African Reserve Bank, and I think we must not take any measures that are going to undermine that independence. And so whatever decision we arrive at must not undermine the independence of the South African Reserve Bank.
You might be still making your assessment, but the markets to some extent have already made theirs, as we have seen a bit of a sell-off in the rand in the past couple of days. Now, I want to talk about the mining charter as well. Do you think that the mining charter in its current form will promote growth or lead to job losses?
The mining charter addresses two fundamental questions in the South African economy. One, its growth. Secondly, transformation. South Africa needs inclusive growth. And inclusive growth means that we must transform the structures of production, but at the same time, we need to transform the patterns of ownership by involving in asset ownership those groups of people like women, youth, black people, and people with disability who've been excluded from economic ownership. So the mining charter seeks to achieve that. What I think is a matter of concern for me is the disagreement, therefore, between the mining chamber and the Department of Mineral Resources on the proposed changes in the charter. I would like to see them sitting down, talking about those changes, because quite honestly, the 4% upward adjustment in terms of BEE codes in the mining charter is a modest change in the charter. So if there are concerns, one would want to understand what is the nature of those concerns, and I would like the minister and the chamber to sit down and discuss these issues to seek an agreement.
One of the concerns is that investors, might quit the industry, and the Chamber of Mines, which you've just mentioned, is preparing a legal challenge to the mining charter. Is it unconstitutional? Did the Mines Minister actually consult you ahead of its release?
The Minister of Mineral Resources consulted Cabinet extensively. We discussed the mining charter, and what was released was a collective decision of Cabinet. And the reason why I have said I'm requesting the minister and encouraging him to sit down and talk to the mining chamber is because in my discussion with the chamber, they raised a concern that they had not been extensively consulted, whilst the minister himself is of the view that he was. Now, it's not a matter for me to resolve, but what I would not want to see is a litigation that's going to take place and that will prolong the implementation of the charter and the changes proposed in it. I would like to see the two parties sitting down and reaching an agreement that is going to take the mining sector in South Africa serious, because forward, because the mining sector in South Africa plays a critical role in driving growth and investment, in driving employment, and if there is prolonged litigation among the important role players, it's going to interfere with investments and it's going to impact negatively the mining sector. Yeah,
Minister, in your former position as Home Affairs and Public Enterprises Minister, did you help the Guptas obtain citizenship, ignoring the advice of your own officials? And did you appoint their associates to positions at state companies to allow them, as has been alleged, to loot them?
Look, let me now... I hope you have time, because I need to provide you an answer which I've given in South Africa. Ministers do not determine who become members of boards. What the Department of Public Enterprises would do is to, when there are vacancies on the boards or when the board members need to be rotated, they would develop a template with a skills matrix that is required. They would then go out to seek the names of people whom they propose to fill those gaps and bring those to the minister to approve finally and forward them to cabinet for appointment. So as a minister, I followed that process. And realizing that there were gaps in the process, I then proposed that we need to advertise the positions of boards, to develop a database of people eligible for appointments on the different boards.
So you did appoint Gupta's associates to positions?
But how do you know that they are Gupta associates? What about the majority of the people that are appointed that were not associated with anybody? You wouldn't know. I'm not I'm not a psychic. I don't know before a person is appointed who they are associated with.
Just a brief...
I don't ask them those questions before I appoint them.
Just a brief yes or no. Will you make yourself available for a party leadership post if nominated as leader of the ANC?
Well, it really doesn't depend on me. I think it depends on members of the ANC. Right now, nobody has asked me to avail myself, and therefore I'm not available. Until that changes, we will see when we get to that point.